welcome to the Shoot It Straight podcast.
Welcome.
That was so awkward.
I know. The beginning's always very awkward for me.
You're awkward.
I'm an awkward person sometimes.
Everybody's awkward.
Yeah, you're really awkward.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you're actually embarrassing. I don't like going out in public. No, I'm kidding.
What? I was going to say, I mean, we've all had awkward moments. I think you just have to just take them in stride. It's like for you, sometimes you get, I don't know, you get all caught up in your awkwardness, which makes things more awkward.
How so?
I don't know, like awkward pauses and just your body language. You get all like tensed up, or you'll blush, which is kind of funny. Next time I'll call you out in the middle of an awkward moment so you'll know when it's coming.
And in front of other people, I assume this will happen.
It'll probably be on this podcast. It'll probably be today.
I mean, this is, I'm still, this is out of my element. I still, I expect to be kind of awkward on here. This is like still new to me.
Why do you think this is out of your element?
Because we're sitting here with microphones in front of our face chatting. So it's a little, I mean, I used to, be on the microphone all the time, like in group fitness and in front of 50, 60 people. And
it was
like,
the same.
I would probably feel more comfortable if I was like actively demonstrating a squat right now. Like if I was doing like a fitness move, like here's how you do push-ups. I could do that on a microphone in front of hundreds of people probably. But if I should stand there and talk, that's nerve-wracking to me.
Well, what's wild is like people just don't talk anymore.
Maybe that's why.
Where you're either eating dinner, or there's always something going on, or you're at an event. If you're speaking to somebody, or obviously you're communicating via text, email, screens. This is like us just letting go, literally sitting here and talking
as humans,
one-on-one.
With eye
so
contact.
Maybe that's like the weird thing. Yeah, the eye contact.
Yeah.
Which we're older. Can you imagine like the kids that are literally kids, what they're going to be like in their adult life?
I mean, I used to be super shy, like especially in front of large groups. Like I remember like in college, like when it was time to give a presentation, or even they were going to call you and just ask you what your name was and you had to say something about you. Like I would freak out.
Yeah. You said that you've taken that until you did Group X. And that
Group X was
changed
that was so hard for me when I first started.
Which was like when you're literally 30 years old, which is wild.
Yeah, I did that when I was 30, right?
I was the kid in class that was
never shut up.
Probably a little bit of that, but just participated, raised her hand, like did all those annoying, like obnoxious.
Yeah, you were the goody good. I was like the smart ass, like that got in trouble all the time. And if anyone from my high school is listening, they definitely remember that. And, I was in trouble all the time. The principal knew me by first name.
That is so
and used to just yell at me. I said, not even, if you're out there, Mr. Cyrus, he would just yell at me sometimes and just not even discipline me. Just be like, get in here, shut the door. And he would just yell at me.
The only things I got in trouble for was nothing like serious, but it would be like talking out in class. Or I do remember one time at field hockey practice in high school, I was responsible for us like running like punishment, like hill suicides.
And you're like, I love running. Let's keep going.
Well, yeah. And that like I did. I mean, I was like, whatever, but it sucks when your team is the one like running after, you do it at the end of practice. You've already practiced. And then it's like, oh, Erika said, fuck. So now we have to run hills. And you just like, that makes you feel like
Has
shit.
fuck been your favorite word for that long?
Yeah, I'm serious. I've had a Philibert foul mouth for a really long time. I don't know why. Where does that even come from? Some people just have it and other people don't. I think it's so funny. People still talk about like, or people tune people out that cuss and like whatever. And it's just like, to each their own, I guess, but.
I don't really notice it until you listen to like David Goggins, and then it's every other word. He's like,
he does. Like, I'm here for it.
It's fun to listen to because it just like it brings out like his intensity. He's like, fuck my fucking knees. Like, I don't give a shit. And it's like,
yeah.
Like he only said 8 words and 4 of them were curse words.
I know. I feel like it's him though. Like that's his internal monologue to himself all the time, right? So he's just being who he is. I mean. Yeah, that's the thing. Like when people are like, well, why do you cuss so much? It's like, I don't know. Why do you not? Like, it just is what it is. Like it comes out and there's no thinking, there's no thought behind it. There's literally not a thought behind it. It's just how you speak your language. And like, that's it. It's part of my dialect.
And I would try to tone it back when I was doing group fitness. I try not to curse too much on the microphone.
Yeah.
Because, you're in front of a bunch of people. And
yeah, it's fair.
And then also, I think you wanted to not say too much, because then it just kind of gets mumbled, or is that the word, muffled? Like when you say too much stuff, like it's just kind of, people lose you.
Well, it's essential language.
Yeah, it's essential language. That's what I'm looking for.
Be essential. Say what's important, or else you just are tuned out, and then because we know nobody really listens to you anyway.
Yeah.
Not
like
purpose,
if someone's like, you're doing a teacher group fitness class and someone's running like as hard as they possibly can on a treadmill, and you start saying a bunch of stuff to them, they can't understand you because they're near death.
They're tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
and so you can just, all they can process is stop or slow down or go faster. Like that's it.
Essential language.
Essential language. I need to work on that because I just kind of ramble on too long sometimes.
I think we all can do that. That's why we have one podcast, and we're going to ramble on today about Overspeed training.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
This will be fun because like we were chatting before, I think I have lots of questions about it. So I'm just going to ask as a person who doesn't know a lot about it. I mean, I know that you have speed sticks. I know that it's important to train with
You've used
sticks.
them?
I've used them.
Oh, I should have looked up that video. I think you swung at like 126 miles an hour. Wasn't that it?
It was pretty fast. Yeah. I think, did I do both sides too? Did you make me do left and right?
I don't think so.
That was a thing. Oh,
did I?
No. I don't know. I know it was barefoot outside on our driveway back at my parents' house, right?
Yeah, and like they kind of like a slicker driveway too.
Yeah, and I think I was wearing socks because I must have been lifting out in the gym or something like that.
I think we had pulled the horse mats outside.
We should redo that test actually.
And see what you can do.
Yeah.
Well, we need to take you to get fitted for some clubs. So
get fitted for clubs. I've been doing a lot of strength since the last time we did. Like it's been a year.
Power. So yeah. See what you got. So yeah, Overspeed training. So we'll kind of talk about today about how you can incorporate using Overspeed, like the weighted clubs. There's many different brands out there. There's the Super Speed, there's the Stack system, and there's the one I currently use, which is the Ripstick. They all have their differences. They all have really good protocols and things like that. So I'm not really gonna get into like the nuance of what each one of them do and how they do it. I'll just kind of talk about Overspeed training using weighted clubs, like in general.
Yeah. So, I mean, who needs these? Is this kind of, are we going to go through, is this for the advanced athlete, or is this kind of for, can you be at any level of golf and incorporate this into your training?
So I think that's a good question. I think, yes, at any level of golf, you can use these clubs. I would imagine, or I would say, I would recommend you probably want to understand how to swing the club in the first place before you start like grabbing like weighted clubs. Like I want you to have I think you should have a pretty good swing to begin with, like a pretty mechanically sound swing before you start making a bad swing faster. I think there is a stigma out there, I guess, that these clubs actually make your swing worse. You know, so if you have swing faults, I don't think it's going to make them any worse. I think they actually have done some things that make them better. But you know, you're going to do whatever you do, just faster.
No, I think
so if you have a gnarly slice or something like that, it's not going to fix it most likely, and you're still going to slice it. Now you're just going to slice it a little faster. So
yeah,
whatever you do, it's just going to be faster.
Well, that's like with anything that I mean, we can go back to like the squat. You don't necessarily want to overload that until you like really have the mechanics down. I mean,
right.
It's pretty much the same idea.
Right. So mechanics, and I think a good foundation of fitness is really important.
Okay.
To start first, because I mean you're going to grab clubs that are heavier than the normal club you swing, like they all have different weights, and they're going to be heavier than your normal driver swing. So if you don't have adequate mobility and strength that you can get from the gym or daily life, you know, I think you can set yourself up for possibly an injury. I don't want to put it out there that these clubs hurt you, because I don't think they do. But you know, if your body's not ready to do this kind of stuff at all, like I would probably start there and take care of yourself before you jump into some stuff like this.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe not for the beginner then. You know, I don't think this is.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and say that maybe I would probably go out there and say, like, I'd recommend this probably isn't for the person who just picked up golf or fitness.
Right. Yeah. I would say like an intermediate for sure. You know, and then of course, like our advanced golfers are out there. It probably would make a big difference on their swing. Right. So so we're using these. I've used them, and you know, my experience was that it's very taxing because it's explosive and they're heavier, obviously, much heavier than I'm sure like the normal women's clubs. That's probably like a whole nother thing too, but
yeah, they have multiple ways, or like Super Speed has different clubs, like, you know, for men, women, juniors, long
Right.
drivers. Ripstick has different weights that come in and out of the club.
Yes.
It has a counterweight. I'm not as familiar with the stack system, but I would have to assume that they have a similar way to go for all populations out there.
Okay, so it's explosive. We're obviously generating a lot of power. We're wanting it to be like okay, I guess this is my next question is like, is it a tool where we're wanting to always be going 100% when we're using it? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
You don't just half-ass. Like,
right. And I've seen people use these clubs like at the country club I used to work at, and they would bring them in and they would just like do practice swings with them. And I was like, why don't you just use your regular club if you're going to do practice swings? That's not what they were designed to do, in my opinion. I mean, granted, like, you know, the people that created these, maybe there is protocols out there that they've created that I'm not aware of, but they're overspeed training tools to swing fast. So yes, you do want to be dropping the hammer on these things.
Yeah. So share more about that then. What is your opinion? If it's not to just, you know, I think maybe people see batters in baseball, like they take their weighted bats or whatever before they go out there and like try to hit one out of the park. Maybe it's a little bit of that going on with like
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely, it is for that reason, right? If you swing a heavy club, your regular club's going to feel lighter, and therefore you can swing it faster. But also there's a lot of things going on neurologically, right? That we're just kind of taking, I like to say you're taking the governor off. Like, you know, like certain cars out there or whatever that have a governor, right? They can only go so fast, right? We can kind of take that off mentally when we take these clubs and we swing them. You're supposed to swing out of your shoes, right? You are meant to swing these things really hard. So that way you can, once again, swing a regular club faster. I think the tricky part here is that you have to do it with rest. Yeah. So when you're incorporating these clubs into a training program, which is what I really kind of want to talk about, because my expertise is not in overspeed clubs themselves, right? There's people out there that work for these companies. That's their job. When you buy one of their products, they're going to tell you how to use it. And like, if you want more information on exactly why it works, reach out to them. But I want to talk about how you actually are going to put it into your workout program. So I do find it interesting, right? So like if you have never swung these clubs before and you're just now starting a program, let's say we're going to talk about my program because it's the one I know about.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
It has, in my program, 3 times a week has speed training in the workouts via jumps, med ball slams, heavy weightlifting, and then also like our mobility and things like that are in the program as well. But if you're just getting started like doing that type of programming, that type of speed training itself in the gym, and you're going to pick up a set of these clubs too, I'd really advise you to get into that slowly. You know, I think the typical protocol that most of them have out there is 3 times a week with these clubs when you first start out with them. But if you're just getting started doing a program like mine, which is 3 days a week of heavy speed training, I would probably only swing those clubs like once a week.
Yep. And
then the tricky part here would be when to do it, because you want to do it when you have a lot of rest, right? So if I'm telling you if my program is, which my program is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, heavy speed training, I would ideally, in a perfect world, tell you to swing those clubs Monday morning before your first workout.
Yep.
So that way you still have your rest days in between, because you don't want to swing these clubs, you know, the day after you do one of my workouts, because you've already taxed your central nervous system and everything that helps you move fast. And then you're going to grab these clubs, and the goal is to swing them as fast as you can, not to swing them slow, because then you could actually be training yourself to swing slower, right? As opposed to training yourself to swing faster, because if you don't have enough rest, you're just not going to swing as fast as you can. Okay, so it's about managing your energy, basically. Definitely. And you know what's interesting about like speed training and like my in-season programming is like the next day you probably won't feel like super wrecked, right? And if you swing these clubs the next day, you probably won't feel much, but your brain feels it. Your central nervous system feels that it's not ready. It hasn't recovered enough yet to fire at 100%, or you're actually trying to get yourself to fire over 100% with these overspeed clubs, right? So you definitely want to manage your rest while using these clubs and while training for speed in the gym. Well, yeah, let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about specific reps and sets, right? Because that would obviously have a factor, you know, as far as how fatigued we are and how much power we can generate, right? It's like when we see people doing box jumps in the gym and they're doing reps of
30, or we've done that in CrossFit where it's like box jumps for time or whatever, you know what I mean? Which has its own thing, but you're fatigued as fuck and your box jumps are not going to be very cute, and they're going to be sloppy, and you're going to be like, you're just fatiguing yourself at the end of the day. That's what you're doing, which you could probably do the same thing with overspeed training.
Yep.
Where is our, like, what's the sweet spot with how many swings are we taking at a time? How long are the rest periods? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of nuance here, but I'm assuming also that we're not necessarily doing 5 sets of 20.
No. Well, and what's cool is, so each, if you were to purchase one of these tools, these Overspeed clubs, they come with a protocol.
Cool.
That they tell you exactly what to do. And a lot of them, I think, have taken the volume down recently. Like Super Speed, for example, I know just over, maybe it was the last year, ever since I've been using them, maybe it was 2 years. Anyways, they knocked down the volume. I think they cut it like in half. Like they realized they did some studies that show that people were getting better results with less swings.
Yep.
So that's always important to think about. And I just talked to a guy today who's doing my program, and he's incorporating the ripstick into his program. And we were talking about this, and he's doing a couple sessions on the TrackMan. Then he's doing his speed training, and he started my program. And to me, that sounded like a lot, right? So like my recommendation was, hey, let's dial it back. But with that being said, I was like, hey, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like if you're doing this 3 times a week and you're seeing results, like who am I to say like change that up?
Sure.
You know, I'm all for experimenting now. How long can he sustain that? We'll see. But he's much more experienced. Like someone that's just getting into it, I wouldn't recommend doing that as much. So the to answer your question, like how many sets and reps, that's all dependent on the tool that you get, and they will tell you. Usually they tell you to start out doing it 3 times a week. I would probably err on the side of caution and start out once a week, which a lot of them do have like they call it their like maintenance phase.
Yeah.
So if you were to start one of these programs, they would say like do it 3 times a week for, I think it's like 12 weeks, maybe 6 to 12 weeks. And then you would go into like a maintenance phase. So it's kind of like you would go into the off season, like kind of how we do in the gym. Like off season has more volume, and then when you jump into in season, you take the volume down but keep your intensity high.
Yeah.
So similarly, you would like kind of start out doing like 3 times a week. But if you're already jumping into a program like mine where you're training in the gym 3 times a week really fast, I would probably say, okay, let's just go ahead and jump into using that club once a week. And I would almost guarantee you'll still see results doing that. And the reason I recommend people do pick up one of these clubs, I personally saw great success using these clubs. I went from, I think it was like 116 miles per hour club head speed to like 123 miles per hour, just following one of their protocols.
And how long? What was your timeline when you?
That didn't take me very long. That took me, and I was able to sustain it. So like I still have that speed, and I don't really use them that. I'm just now using them again, and I was maintaining that speed for a long time. I think it took me 6 months to get up to going that fast.
Yeah.
Granted, I come from a background of being very strong and powerful. Yes. So like all I had to do was translate it into a golf swing, right? So that's why it's important though, is because you can take, you know, someone who's a great athlete in the gym or doing other things, and we don't necessarily want to do a ton of golf-like movements in the gym necessarily, but then you want to translate it into golf, so grab one of these clubs and swing it fast.
Yeah.
You know, like our motto is lift heavy, swing fast. I'm usually only in charge of lifting heavy, right? That's what I program. Like whoever your golf coach is telling you how to swing, so you got to go swing fast too. It's part of the motto.
It's part of the motto. No, and I'm super here for all of this. You said there were so many like good nuggets that came up in that. One is like, it's very individual in terms of just, you know, reps and sets. I think, you know, that comes with experience. You're somebody who's very experienced, but still like it's a constant learning for you, I'm sure, right? When your training starts to evolve, when you're how much you're playing every week is evolving, like, but to also say that it took you 6 months. So it's funny, some people would say that's forever though. Like that's all relative. You were like, that was really quick. It is really quick. 6 months over the span of our lifetime is nothing.
Yeah.
But some people would be like, well, that's a really long time to get where I want to go or whatever. But if you think about it, you went from 116 to 123. That's a lot. That's a good jump.
Yeah. And I mean, I should have got my number. I have it all. Like I got videos of it. Like I should have kind of got the timeline a little bit better. But like, for example, I got a guy who just reached out to me. He did my off-season program. and he went up 8 miles per hour of club head speed in 12 weeks and never swung a club. Didn't do an overspeed club.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything.
Yes.
And he didn't send me like a video of his swing like before and after. Like, so I really don't know like what he did, right? If he didn't swing a club, like I realized like, unless he was like doing something and, you know, like doing some slow-mo, or he was doing like some drills or something, but he said he never swung a club. So that all to me had to come from his physical body, right? Yeah. Like, you know, did he create more ground force? Did he do this, do that? So I mean, it's really cool how each individual person creates more speed.
Yeah. Well, and again, the goal and this is with all types of training, we've talked about this before, to elicit the most response with the least amount of training. That should be everybody's goal. So, you know, yeah, these protocols might ask for or call for 3 days a week, which is, you know, that's a cool, like, generic response. And there's no shade to any of these companies telling people to use their products, but it's like, if you can see the results doing something once a week, then do that. That's going to be the most sustainable thing anyway. In the long term, we tell our clients that stuff too, right? Where it's like, well, people come out of not working out forever, and then all of a sudden they want to work out 3 times a week. And it's like, well, that's great. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But like, how about just once a week you commit to for a little while and see what happens with that. And especially with people that are busier in season and playing golf 2-3 times a week too. Again, like, all of that just depends, but more is definitely not more when it comes to training.
Right. And they work well. I mean, with a training program as well. Like, so I have these 2 guys I train, here in person at Cedar Ridge Country Club, and they are older gentlemen. They're late 60s, mid 70s. There's only 2 of them, so one's late 60s, one's mid 70s. And we've been training similar to how like I program in my programs. Granted, I've massaged it a little bit because they're like, you know, not super experienced in the gym. So like, you know, I got them doing jumps and slamming stuff around and things like that. But we started using the clubs, the Overspeed clubs. And they both have increased their swing speed. One guy, the gentleman who's 75, increased it by like 10 miles per hour. Wow. In just like a few weeks. Now that's with the club. I don't know what his actual, he just goes out there and plays. Like, he doesn't actually go out there and, you know, get club head speed with his actual driver, which is obviously what we're the most important part. Cause like, who really cares how fast you can swing this weighted club? Like, we care how fast you swing the driver hitting the golf ball. But yeah, so he even played around recently. Granted, this man's 75 years old, and he moved back a set of tees.
Wow.
Because he thought it was unfair by how well he was playing. Yeah. And then his issue was, you know, he's a member at the country club. He's probably played that course a couple thousand times. Who knows? Probably more than that. But anyways, and he was like, you know, I was taking my same lines, and like now I'm hitting it into bunkers that I used to not even be able to reach and stuff like that. He's like, I actually played pretty terribly, but you know, I just gotta figure it all out again, where the ball's gonna go. So that was really cool to hear. And then I think he's in Vegas right now, so he's probably out there taking people's money because of his newfound swing speed.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
But it's at any age that people can increase their swing speed, and it's really cool. I mean, and we paired this. We've only been doing it we only did it like once a week, and we paired it with strength training and mobility and power in the gym too. So that was really fun to see, and he was super excited too, you know, giving his buddy a hard time about it. So it was good.
Did he buy the sticks himself?
No, they have them at the club.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the club has a set that he got to use.
I feel like some people do get excited and they're like, I'm gonna take some of these home. I'm gonna get myself some of these.
Oh, they do. I mean, you know, now that I've worked at multiple country clubs, like there's usually a set lying around somewhere.
Okay.
Now, granted, usually the grip's pretty worn, and I might need to get them re-gripped, but
because people like to use them.
Hell yeah.
Read the little computer that tells you how fast you swung.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I do want to mention that. Like, so you need to. I highly recommend, and like I almost think it's a necessity that you have a little radar, because you have to have a way to measure it, or else you're just out there swinging these things around, and who knows if it's actually working for you.
Oh, I thought they came with them.
No, you have to.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes and no, but like,
I
mean, it's sold separately.
Got it. Okay.
Obviously, the companies want you to buy them, and you should.
Oh yeah, that was the coolest part. I can't imagine just
swinging them.
You can, but yeah, you got to. Well, again, it is about measuring your progress, and that's important in our training. We want to know are we adding weight to the bar? Is our mobility getting better? Are we getting deeper in our squats? And are we swinging our club faster?
Yeah, is it actually working?
Just make that up. Yeah.
And that's why that comes back to when you're training with I love the training with the least amount as possible, right? Because it'd be really cool. Like, like this guy I just talked to today, I'm curious, like, he's been doing it 3 times a week. He also swings his driver fast when he goes, and does his TrackMan sessions. I'd be curious if he has written down, and I may ask him, if he's written down like how fast his speed has been increasing. And if you were to like knock a day down, like instead of doing 3, if he did 2, if he would actually see more results by doing less.
Yeah.
Sometimes less is more.
Yes.
So that could be really interesting.
Yes.
I'm all for like experimenting though. I think it's really fun. I mean, we do it with our nutrition. I do it with my nutrition sometimes. Like I see like, oh, if I eat, like a couple of days ago, I had like my yogurt before my workout to see kind of like an hour and a half before to see if that would help me. Like if it would do anything, if I could work out with like dairy on my stomach, and I had a really good workout. So I might do that again. It's just all this kind of stuff like that you can like track and see how it goes for you. We're all different, like is fun. And I think you should do it. So if you do less, can you get better results? That's better for you because now you can go do something else. Yeah. Maybe instead of that 20 minutes that you just worked on driver swing speed that you may not actually need to do, hey, you can, instead of doing that on the driving range, go to the putting green and work on your putting or something instead.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, and I think it's an important thing to remember too with doing things like that when it comes to experimenting, back to like science basics 101, but like don't change too many variables at once either. Right. Because then you don't know what the fuck is working or what's not working, and there's too many things happening, right? So it's good to just make sure that you're being mindful of, and also for the people that, the low-hanging fruit is the most important, right? So back to the beginning of this conversation, this probably isn't for beginners because beginners probably have a lot of other things that they need to work on first, like
I would agree,
swinging appropriately, or probably some bigger mobility issues that they wouldn't necessarily want to swing a heavy club.
Right. So, I mean, if you have a decent swing, they've actually, I've listened to a few podcasts of the guys who are, who like do the research for these clubs, and they're out there on social media, so you can hear what they have to say about that. But that they do say like when you get a heavier club in your hands, you immediately have to become like more efficient.
Yeah. Right.
Or else it's gonna get really wonky, or it's gonna be really hard for you.
Yes.
So like if you're swinging a heavier club, like, and I think they found out that like super speed, for example, like when they use like the heavier clubs, some people weren't able to swing them, near as fast. Like they weren't on pace with like the other clubs that they have. Like they went up, like this club weighs this much. They were able to swing it this much faster each session. And the same thing with this other club. But when it got to like the really heavy club, it didn't stay on pace with that, because you have to be able to do things more efficiently with something that's heavier, just like you do with like a squat or a deadlift or something like that, or like a clean or whatever it is that you're doing in the gym. So that was pretty fascinating for me to hear that, but they did find that, the certain drills that these, Overspeed tools put in their protocols, like step drills and things like that, help you like weight transfer and use the ground and sequence better. So yeah, if your swing is, if you're on the up and up in your swing, if you're not brand new, if you've never swung a golf club before, you probably don't want to try these, but they do say that it can also like helps improve your sequence or your technique of your swing too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That would be cool to hear from. Maybe we'll have to have
a professional
scientist. Golf pro. I know we've wanted like to get a couple guests on here, which we'll definitely do, but just kind of hearing it from the golf coach side of things, the swing coach side of things, and what their experience is, seeing people's mechanics improve and things like that.
Especially because like,
do you think that there's more feedback from the weighted club? I don't know if I'm asking that. Like when I felt like when I swung it, because it's heavier, there's just literal, like there's more feedback on your body. Like it's a heavier club, so you feel it more. Right.
Like you really have to, I found that, when I bust these clubs out, like I do them out on the grass, you will see what I do to the ground.
Yeah.
Like you just tear up the ground by like pushing into it and using your legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're not, the feedback's going to say like, holy crap, that was all like my upper body.
Yes.
Because you're going to feel it.
Yes. Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's super interesting too. And like getting people, it's like when you teach people how to do a kettlebell swing and you use a lighter kettlebell, but then you're like, kind of need to go heavier because you're just using your upper body and you need to use your hips more. So I'm going to make you pick up a heavier weight. So you have to tap into the bigger muscle groups.
Yeah.
Sort of like
so there's some
idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy. So yeah, that's a very good point. And then like I really like the ripstick now. That's what I use. It's got holes in the end of the club that make this noise, and if anyone knows what I'm talking about, like it's the whoosh noise, right? Like when you swing your club
yeah,
fast.
I've heard you use that actually now that you say that.
Yeah, so it makes and it's a high pitched whoosh. But like if you swing your driver, you hear the whoosh, right? Like if you swing it fast enough, you hear the whoosh, and you want to hear the whoosh. That's the technical term. You want to hear that. You want to hear that
awkward moment happening on the pod.
Yeah, you want to hear that noise at impact and like slightly beyond the golf ball, right? You don't want to hear it like in the back, in the middle of your downswing, like towards like if you're right-handed, you know, like your back foot, like your right foot. Like you don't want to hear the whoosh there. You want to feel and hear the whoosh up by the ball and at impact, because that's where you want that's where the club head speed is the fastest. And you want it the fastest when it's actually making contact with the ball.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the ripstick too. I like it for a few different reasons. It's only one club versus like some of the other ones are like you got to carry around 3 clubs.
Like the sets of all the yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like for me, you know, I can take it to the driving range and leave it in my bag as opposed to having 3 extra clubs hanging out in my bag, which isn't the end of the world, but
Squat's on the podcast today. If anybody hasn't heard,
Squat has been talking on the podcast. But yeah, so I find it pretty cool that you can hear that noise, and then it also has a counterbalance too at the end of the club.
Yeah.
Like by the grip. So I think it's a pretty cool product.
Golf is like such an auditory sport, actually. You know.
Yeah, I don't know how people practice with their headphones. I know I know the younger guys do, but I'm just like.
No, it's and again, this is coming from someone who, for a reminder to people, I don't golf a lot, or I'm certainly not a pro, but like. Hearing the ball hit your club and like that's just it's good information. It's sort of like cool. Driving, like you kind of like need to be aware of what's happening. Maybe it sounds cool if you're good. Mine's like twink, twink, fuck. But when you hear it like and you feel it, it's feeling too. You certainly can feel like the sweet spot, but you can connect that to what it sounds like. I mean, there is just like that whole experience around it. So it's interesting that Ripstick kind of incorporated that into their product, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy who created it, he's a good guy. He knows his stuff. He's a swing coach. Like, so it's a good product. I like it. That's what I'm using currently. And it's just easier to kind of bring with you and change out the weights and things like that. So
yeah. So I mean, I think this will wrap up today's pod, but I think that our takeaway would be we need to have some good guests on in the future around some of this stuff.
For sure.
Maybe even have I don't know. The guy that started Ripstick on here talking about his. He
might be too big for me, but we'll find out. I know him personally a little bit.
I mean, why not? Like, get on here and talk about the Ripstick a little bit more.
And I have reached out to a lot of these companies before about how to incorporate, because I'm the fitness guy, right? Like, I think they created these products, right, for people that, they're creating a product that stands alone.
Yes.
Right. So like they're going to tell you to use it 3 times a week.
Yes.
Now, if you were to ask them like, hey, I'm also doing a fitness program that incorporates speed in my program, like in the gym where I'm jumping, I'm throwing a medicine ball around, or I'm lifting weights. And
I'm playing 1 to 2 times a week.
Right. And then let's also like think, I like to also hit my driver afterwards too. I like to actually hit a ball. Actually take the back. Actually, I like to swing my driver with my radar without a ball. Then I like to hit a ball just to tie it all together.
Yeah.
And if you don't have an Overspeed club, I would recommend you at least like a couple times a week go out and swing your driver as hard as you can. I tell people too, like actually take like your old driver, if you have one laying around, that one you don't mind if you hit one off the top or something goofy, because you should try to hit it really hard and see what happens. But yeah, so I mean, I guess another takeaway would be if you're new, I would think that you're actually going to get really good results, if not better, by just getting your body better, by getting into the gym, lifting weights, getting more mobility and speed and power. And then when you're ready, start swinging your driver faster.
Yeah.
And then when you're really ready, grab some of these Overspeed clubs and incorporate them into your training.
Yeah, I love that.
Ideally, before you hit a heavy speed workout in the gym.
That's so perfect. That's a good way to wrap it up. This was really, really helpful. We'll definitely include in the show notes too, which we always do, like your Ripstick code, I believe.
Yeah, you can save like 10% if you use my code. It's Wescott Golf. It's my last name, Golf.
And we'll link the other ones too that we mentioned, just so people know what they're looking at. Everyone has the Google machine, but it's just helpful for people to be able to reference that stuff. And if people aren't signed up for our newsletter, which I am going to plug that today because we've been putting in some good little nuggets around this kind of stuff too. So we put lots of discount codes in there. And then, you know, every once in a while, some really good nuggets around certain training protocol and things of that nature. And of course, updates on all of our programs.
Yep.
So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, until next time, we're out.
Thanks, guys.
Bye and goodbye to Squat.
Bye, Squat. You're fired.